7th main event, 4th cash for Garry. Now to the big blind, the big stack. And Son pushed Garry around a little earlier this evening.
I would be prone.
How's it going today? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andreas Fröhlich, and in today's video I'm going to look at a hand from the 2019 WSOP main event final table. We're 5 left. The 5th place finisher is going to get 2.2 million. First prize is going to be 10 million. And we got Garry Gates opening it up with the ace and offsuit from the button. Osin Enzan makes a call from the big blind with king 9 suited. Preflop, it's obviously standard here. There's not really that many alternatives. From the button, you could establish a limping range because of the small blind. The small blind Livingston here has 25 big blinds. And let's say the small blind reshuffles a lot of hands. You're going to be fairly sad to raise fold hands, you know, like 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, check 9 suited, queen 9 suited, and all these hands, you know. It's not cool to put in 2-point-something X blinds and then always have to fold to the rejam. So if the dynamic is so that the small blind rejams a lot of hands, you might want to, you know, limp a bunch of hands and then raise a little bit of more polarized range where you have, you know, weak blocker hands like ace for offsuit and so on and so forth. And then the very strong hands which just can snap call a 25 big blind reshove, like, you know, pocket 8s or better, for example.
Things that have you in bad shape.
And there is a king for Enzan to take the lead.
Jolan Enzan was at the Global Casino Championship last year that we were at. He made the final 2 tables. As usual, I have no recollection of him or virtually anybody I ever see a year ago. But he was there. He was in Cherokee. He finished 15th.
Okay.
And, stranger to us.
Are you big timing him from the booth?
Okay. Just by definition, I cannot big time anyone.
Especially people who are playing for 10 million right now.
That's 2 points.
There you go.
And that room is so huge. It's hard to see anybody, know anybody, remember anybody. Beautiful property in Cherokee.
Apparently they were serving you drinks.
Faced with a bet of 2.3 million from Gates.
Call.
The flop comes king 8-5 with 2 clubs. Enzan checks it over to Garry Gates, who puts out a 3rd c-bet here in position. And on these board textures, it has become fairly standard for the in-position player to bet a 3rd here. Think of all the auto folds that you're generating from the big blind. If you make a small investment like a 3rd pot size c-bet, the big blind could have a hand like queen 4, queen 3, queen 2 suited, all the check X suited that don't connect with a pair on the board, all, you know, of the 10x suited. So even a hand like queen 4 suited with a backdoor flush draw would have to fold here, and you get to do that with a fairly small c-bet. Also, the big blind doesn't have a lot of hands that he can check raise with here. I mean, he has a bunch of hands, of course, but you know, on king 8-5, you know, there's some 2 pairs, some flush draws, some straight draws, but it's not nearly as dangerous as, for example, a king 7-7 board. If you look at a king 7-7 board, on the other end, for instance, you would have the big blind with all the offsuit combinations, you know, king 7 off through 8-7 offsuit, which could, you know, then go ahead and check raise as a, you know, a very strong hand on the flop. Whereas the in-position player, especially with the small blind having a reshove stack, couldn't really open up all those 7x offsuit combinations. So you would have a fairly big disbalance between the big blind's trips and the button's trips. But that's not the case here. So, you know, Gates puts out a c-bet of 3rd. Enzan has top pair, so he check calls, not strong enough to check raise yet. So we head on to the turn.
Card is another club.
Usually when you're semi-bluffing and the turn card improves your hand, it's pretty safe to continue telling your story. I think in this case, though, for Garry, I may elect to just check this back. You have a kind of weak flush draw, and there's a chance you get to show down your ace and just be good, which is always nice.
Enzan improved with a gut shot, and he checks now.
The other benefit, if Garry elects to check back, is you're not playing a bloated pot against the only guy who can really hurt you.
That is 6.5.
Well, Gates, who blasted nearly 8,000 spots deeper than Jamie Kerstetter in the main event, decides to go the other way.
Hey, I beat at least like a few hundred people. Leave me alone.
I'm sorry. Gates, who
I think that's
lasted
what he
more
said.
than 7,000 spots, more than Jamie Kerstetter, chooses to go the other way.
Yeah, the other thing that would lead me towards checking back as Gates is that this is a board that's getting better for the big blind defend range and a little worse for the button raising range. So it's easy, even if Enson doesn't have a big piece of this, which we see that he does, he can bluff Garry off of this with a hefty check raise a decent amount of the time.
The turn is the 6 of clubs, and this should shut down the action quite a bit. Both players are gonna have a bunch of flushes, and when they do not, you know, the turn should go check, check quite a bit. Ensign checks it over to Gates, who puts in a double barrel with the ace 10 with the 10 of clubs here. And I know, for example, that Doug Polk has made a video about this, saying that the double barrel here is, you know, fairly good with the 10 of clubs blocker. I tend to disagree here. Because the big blind has already not check folded the flop, he has continued, he doesn't have that many weak hands anymore. You know, if you're betting this small on a turn with a hand like ace 10 with the 10 of clubs, what are we really folding out? If the big blind is, you know, playing a good strategy, then he's only gonna fold, you know, bottom pair for the most part, some of the weaker middle pairs, and as soon as he has, you know, middle pair and a gut shot or better, he is gonna continue here. And then also, obviously, you're gonna fold out some of the hands that you have crushed. Some of the weaker ace highs that the big blind continue with on the flop, you know, they're gonna fold a turn, and you have so much equity against them. And then let's not forget that if you bet the turn here, you open yourself up to being check raised on the turn, and then you have to fold a lot of equity sometimes. So for example, if you bet ace 10 with a 10 of clubs, the big blind check raises a 9 high or 7 high flush, then all of a sudden you're folding a bunch of equity trying to make that 4 flush on the river, and that's not really good for you here. So with the ace 10 with the 10 of clubs exactly, it's not going to be a very effective bet here, and it should go check check here on the turn quite a lot. But that's not what happens. It goes check call by Ensan, and let's now head on to the river.
Well, now Gates hits the river, not with a club though.
This is one of those good news, bad news spots. It's good news if Ensan checks to him because now he has showdown value and he doesn't have to bluff. But now he may find a way to call this with just a 10 with this lead out here.
That's 8.9.
On the small side.
I love the way Enson played this hand, though. Just go ahead, go ahead. Now you must call me on the river.
I think most players in Ensan's spot would probably check this. It's like he senses that Garry hit a 10. You'd think, all right, I'm going to just catch a bluff here if Gates wants to put in another bet, if he just had a club. Oh, Gates looks like he's up to no good here.
He's cutting out a lot of those big 5 mil.
The river is the 10 of spades. Now, Gates makes some showdown value, and Ensan still has showdown value with top pair, so the majority of the time it's going to go check, check here. But no, Ensan now donk bets 9 million, and Garry Gates no longer thinks that his 10 is good, puts in a bluff raise to 25 million. So what happened? Like, I have no idea concretely what Ensan tried to do here, but here's what could have happened. Like, so version 1 would be that Ensan thought he had a straight on the river. Typically, when you improve on the river, even on some flush runouts, you could, you know, make a small bet of a third of the pot. So you basically deny the check back of your opponent, trying to get in some extra value. So on this run out, if you did that, you will be with, you know, king 6, king 10, king 8, all these types of hands that just don't want your opponent just to check back and yeah, get in some extra value. However, he has king 9 and there's no straight on the board, and Garry puts in the bluff raise. Now on Gary's side, you know, you have to be extra careful with what type of hands you want to bluff raise here. Sure, you're going to have a lot of value hands that you can raise with, like basically all the flushes, but on the other hand, you also have an insane amount of potential bluffs. If you think about it, when you're on the button, compared to an under the gun player, you're going to have all these ace 3, ace 4 offsuit hands with the ace of clubs that you could be bluff raising with on the river. And you might have guessed, like, these are the, you know, the main bluff raises you want to have. You want to block a pretty reasonable flush, and you want to have a hand that has no showdown value. So you're going to pick, like, you know, the ace 3, ace 4 with the ace of clubs. You're going to pick the check 9 offsuit with the jack of clubs, with the 9 of clubs, queen 9 offsuit with the 9 of clubs, or the queen of clubs. These are hands that, you know, can't really win, so they are going to put in a bunch of money balanced with all the value hands that you have, and you try to not go overboard by having too many bluffs in this spot. Now, if you also bluff raising a bunch of hands that include the 10 of clubs, let's pretend, you know, Gates could have raised with, you know, queen 10 with the 10 of clubs, ace 10 with the 10 of clubs, check 10 with the 10 of clubs, 10-9 with the 10 of clubs. So how do you know how often you're bluff raising here on the river when you raise this hand here? And it's really hard to control that sort of frequency if you're, you know, not going in a linear fashion, if you don't bluff the bottom of your range. You know, how would you randomize this spot? Yeah, it's extremely difficult to try and randomize here. So you should just try to take the weakest of your hands with a really decent blocker and then raise those hands. And don't raise too many hands so that in the end your value will still be better than your bluffs, basically. And also it depends on sizing a lot. You could obviously size it up, and then you can have more bluffs, or you can make a smaller raise sizing, and then you cannot allow yourself to have too many bluffs. Otherwise, you're just going to snap it off, and you're going to lose a bunch of money. But let's see what happens here.
Chips.
I love that.
24.5.
I love the way Garry played this hand.
Call. Showdown.
Oh,
And a call.
Pair of tens.
I love the way Ensign.
You know, I call 9, I call 25. It was almost got this. You really got to give it to this guy, Hossein Ensan, this legend of the game. He was right again here. Best chances to take down the main event. I also want to mention that when I do make those videos, I don't pretend I could pull off these strategies that I'm talking about here, you know, in game. Not at all. Like, I would try to do as well as possible. I for sure miss out a lot of these information pieces, and yeah, would obviously make some mistakes. However, you know, this is all free for you to watch. So first of all, you don't have to watch it, but if you want to get this information all for free, don't forget to smash that like button down here, and also subscribe to the channel to see some more content coming up here in the future. Also hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss an episode. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. See you guys next time.